it gives me a great pleasure to welcome to the stage Shaun Cassidy. You're welcome.
Good evening. This is fun.
And we haven't even started yet. Since we're here at the Grammy Museum, let's start with the Grammy question. In 1978, you were nominated for Best New Artist for the 20th Annual Grammy Awards alongside Debbie Boone, Stephen Bishop, Foreigner, and Andy Gibb. You performed That's Rock and Roll to open the show. What do you remember about that night, and when you looked out in the audience, who caught your eye? Not this audience. Or it could be this audience.
I remember a lot about that night. It's one of the reasons I'm here tonight. It was a very special night for me because I had just come off a kind of an extraordinary year of new success in my life with a bunch of hit records and a hit television show. And my neighbor, who was also unknown, who lived down the street, Carrie Fisher, had just opened a little movie called Star Wars. So when I was nominated for Best New Artist in 78, I think, 78, like 19, and they asked me to open the show, which I just thought was insane. I asked Carrie if she wanted to be my date because I thought we could cause some trouble at the Grammys, you know. And we were friends, and we hadn't dated or anything. She was a little older than me, but we were good pals, and Carrie was really smart and funny, and like me, had grown up around it, certainly, because of her mom, Debbie Reynolds, and her father, Eddie Fisher. And so both of us kind of like were in it, but not of it, if you know what I mean. We were kind of enjoying it, but kind of at a safe distance with a little irony, and I think that ultimately was very helpful for me. But I was honored to be invited to open the show and terrified. And Carrie and I had this very funny limousine ride to the Grammys where we might have gotten a little frisky. I don't know how that happened. It must have been the excitement of the evening, but I was a little overheated when I arrived at the theater, and needed that blow dryer to weirdly like put myself back together. Anyway, I got out on the stage, and my band was there, and we did That's Rock and Roll, and it was thrilling, and there were a lot of kids in the cheap seats screaming, and down front is Barbra Streisand looking at me like you're looking at me right now, and she's not liking me shaking my ass in her face. Somehow that was not going over with her. And after the performance, Lou Rawls, who I think had been nominated for something that year, was backstage. He said, "Kid, can I talk to you?" I said, Sure. He said, "It was a wonderful performance, but you never want to turn your back on the audience. You never want to turn your back on the audience." And I thought, I turned my butt on Barbra Streisand, and she may not have liked it, but everybody else seemed pretty thrilled with it. So that's my very exciting Grammy story.
And do you want me to bring up who won?
Sure. She's a good pal of mine, and I'm thrilled she won. Debbie Boone won.
Debbie Boone won.
Much to Foreigner's chagrin. And I think Andy Gibb and I commiserated later. There was actually a funny situation that happened. I was at a table I can't remember, there was a place on Sunset that was a big music business place, and we went afterwards. And I was at a table with Alice Cooper, who was a friend, Ringo Starr, who was in a band called the Beatles. Debbie was there, and maybe Bernie Taupin, who's remained a friend all these years. And Patti Smith was on the show that night, and she came up to the table, and she was a little angry, and she said, "Somebody here doesn't belong in rock and roll." And Ringo looked at me and said, "Is it me?"
Man, totally diffused her, right?
Yeah.
Like
Oh,
totally
yeah.
took the air out of the room. I would like to tell everyone when you get home, that performance is on YouTube. John Denver introduces you.
John Denver
He was
the
host.
Yeah.
And you're in an excellent white outfit, all white outfit. And just want to say,
Yeah.
when you go home, everyone has an assignment. You have to stay here till we're finished. But when you go home, you can look that up. When you were in high school,
Yep.
you signed with Curb Warner Brothers Records. Given your family history, was it a foregone conclusion that you were going to go into entertainment?
I guess so, but I didn't know that. I mean, I have a weird career. I mean, I have a really weird, really good, grateful, lucky, fortunate, lucky guy. But the path has been so strange. And I think by the time I was 16, I'd had 16 years basically of everybody in the world going, you got to do it. You're next. You're in line. And I'd watched David, of course, at 18 explode and become a big, big star. And I'd seen my mother. My mother was a star overnight in a film called Oklahoma at 18. And my father had been a matinee idol on Broadway at 18. So, the idea that it would happen to me was, I think it kind of kept me sane because it wasn't unprecedented in my family at all. In fact, it was kind of the norm, which is insane, but it was kind of in my family the normal course of things. And I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I had so many people saying, you have to do this. And I was a cute kid, and I could sing, and, and I had bands in high school, and I loved playing in bands, but 8 million kids love playing in bands. It doesn't necessarily mean you sign a record contract and go off to Germany in the middle of algebra, which I did. And, I did a show in Germany where AC/DC was the opening act for me.
How?
That's true.
There has to be a story about that. Bon Scott would have still been alive, right? And Angus Young.
Yeah.
Like, is there a story about that? Like you and Angus hanging
out? The guy
out?
in the short pants who was such a good guitar player. That's all I was thinking.
Yeah.
But it wasn't even a real concert. It was like one of those things they would do where I think Pete Townshend's younger brother was on it too. Simon. Yeah. Where they'd put you there with backing tracks, and you'd sing for a bunch of people. I don't think any of them knew who any of us were, but it was this odd collection. I don't know who packaged it, but it was, and I was literally 16, and I looked like Olivia Newton-John's little sister. I mean, I was not ready for my close-up yet. And then I went back to school, and I was doing this for a couple of years. I was recording for Curb. And they had this idea that if you put singles out overseas, maybe you'll have a hit like in France or Italy or Australia. And I did have a #1 record in Australia when I was still in high school. Yeah. But I go back to school, and I'm not really making any money, so I can't move out and live the high life on my rock star winnings. So I graduated from high school, and our family's manager, who was like an aunt to me, her name was Ruth Ahrens, she said, so what are you going to do? You're going to go to college? You're going to stay on this music thing? Do you want to act? I said, well, I hadn't really thought about acting, but she said, it might be good if you can walk and talk at the same time. Why don't we send you out on some acting auditions, see what happens? And I went on 2, and the first one was for a film called The Shootist with John Wayne, and Ron Howard got the part. And the second one was for the Hardy Boys.
Wow.
And
I mean, really just charmed. I mean, talent, yes, of course, but not like
I don't know about talent then. Talent maybe later, but I certainly charmed. And again, I think because, look, my mom is the most grounded show business person you'll ever meet. She really is like what you think she is. She's the real deal. And small town girl has always maintained that. And she was a great model for me, again, about how to sort of be in this business but not of the business. You don't have to long to be on a red carpet to enjoy the creativity and the collaboration that comes with doing great work with great people, which is what I love about it. The whole becoming a celebrity part of it and famous and all that, I didn't like much at all. And I did a very good job of not being famous for a number of years.
I mean, it's fascinating to me, and we're going to get into that in a minute, but it's fascinating to me how grounded you seem to be and how when you were ready to hang it up, you hung it up. But before that, when you and I were talking last week, we were talking about, you grew up with Debbie Boone. You grew up, you went to high school with Jamie Lee Curtis. You said to me, it was always a little blurry between professional and personal. Like you were on movie sets with your mom by the time you were 4. Yeah. So what was that like? Were you kind of at what age did you realize this is not normal? This is not how most people grow up.
It's not normal?
I hate to break it to you. It was your normal. It was your normal.
It was normal to me, and I loved going to sets with my mom. I mean, sets were magic, you know.
Playground.
The first set I remember being on was The Music Man with my mother, and Ron Howard was on that too. He was about 8 and I was about 4. But we rode our bikes around Warner Brothers. I remember doing that. And then 30 years later, I had an office at Warner Brothers producing a show there, and I was looking out at that square where Preston had sung Trouble. And I thought, man, this is like time travel. And by the way, this is like time travel too. It is. It's just I see all your faces and I see the look in some of your eyes, and I remember that look.
It hasn't changed. It hasn't changed.
Well, the light is still there, so thank you for that.
You were making, I mean, just your stories. Again, when we were talking to prepare for this, you have to write a book. I mean, because the stories are some of the most phenomenal I've ever heard. You were talking about making a promotional video for Do Run Run, and you thought to have Phil Spector in it since he had produced the original version for the Crystals. And so you went to his house, and you can pick it up from there.
Okay, we all know who Phil Spector is? Okay, so Brian Wilson, Phil Spector, Motown, Beatles, they were sort of the foundational musical influences, icons that informed everything I did, especially in the early days of my records. And the Spector Wall of Sound was something I was trying to emulate with what they called power pop then. And so when Do Run Run became a hit, Warner Brothers decided, and this is pre-MTV, that it would be a good idea to do like a 30-second commercial to promote the song and the album and introduce me if, you know, people weren't watching the Hardy Boys or whatever. So I have this brilliant idea that we should put Phil Spector in it. He should be in the video because he's Phil Spector. And they wanted to do like a Hard Day's Night thing with a bunch of kids chasing me around. And we shot at the Santa Monica Pier. And I thought, fine, I'll run around and have kids chase me. But I wanted like a limo to pull up out of nowhere and the door to open and me to leap in. And there's Phil Spector. And he looks at camera and goes, "Who is this kid?" That was his line. My brilliant idea, right? Producing my own video.
You were writing scripts already?
18, yeah. So I called Warner Brothers and said, "I want Phil to be in the video." "Oh, I don't think that's a good idea." "Why not? He's Phil Spector. It'd be amazing. It'd be incredible." "I think you might want to read." "No, let's." So they called him. He said, "Great, I'd love to." So we go to his house, film crew, whole film crew, shows up to get him, to pick him up, to go into the back of this limousine and say his one line, which should take an hour, maybe, right? So we get there, and he invites me in, but doesn't want anyone else coming in, just me. Okay? And by the way, this is like a big sort of scary, like gothic, up-Doheny mansion, gates and cameras and stay away and Dobermans. I mean, it's like that vibe, right? So I go in, and he slams the gate. There's a gate before the front door, and then he slams the door and locks it. "Come, sit down." He puts me in his living room in front of his jukebox, which is basically in the center hall, right? But you can see it, and there's the chair. And the jukebox is filled with only his records. Every single song, which I love the records, but then he pulls out a gun. "Okay, Mr. Cassidy," and he starts talking like W.C. Fields, and he's drinking out of a flask in his pocket. "Tell me what you think of this one. You never close your eyes anymore." And there's the Righteous Brothers going, or the original To Do Run Run, or Be My Baby, or pick one, River Deep Mountain High. I love the records, but my blood pressure, even at 18 now, is off the chart. And Mr. Spector, maybe we should go outside. There's a whole crew. "No!" And you know he killed someone. I mean, this is not a happy story. You know, my show is a storytelling show that supports a lot of songs. I can't tell this story leading into Do Run Run because it's not really an upper. But that was a very scary day, and ultimately they called the police. But here's the capper to the story. I'm in the recording studio right now, recording for the first time in 40 years. I've recorded a few new songs, and I'm going to keep doing it. I'm having a great time. I don't know what a record means in 2025. You know, I don't know how you release it. I'll figure it out. But so I'm recording in Santa Barbara, where I live, with this wonderful young producer, and my session's almost up, and he says, "Someone's coming in. He might be here a little early. He's an older gentleman. You might know him." I said, who? Jeff Barry. Do you all know who Jeff Barry is? Jeff Barry wrote Do Run Run with Ellie Greenwich and Phil Spector, okay, among others. Many, 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 many songs. 86 years old. He comes in, he looks really great. Shaun! He gives me a big hug. I guess I'd met him back in the day. Real sidebar thing. My brother Patrick, who is a Broadway guy, played Jeff Barry in a show called Leader of the Pack about Ellie Greenwich and Jeff Barry, a jukebox musical 25 years ago. Anyway, and I reminded him of that. So we're talking, and he says, this kid is great. This producer's great. You know, he reminds me of Phil Spector. And I looked at this young man, Elliot Lanham is his name, and I said, Elliot, you don't do the gun thing, do you? And Jeff said, did he do that to you too? Oh, he used to hold people in his house hostage all the time. I said, I was in there like 8 hours. He said, I was 11. Anyway, that's a happy little story.
So you got off easy. So the whole time you're making music, you're also doing the Hardy Boy Mysteries. Yep. What was that like? How were you balancing that? And I know I can't be the only one who wants to know if you're still in touch with Parker Stevenson.
Oh, yeah. Parker is my brother.
Okay.
No joke. I mean, he and I are really close. Okay. I see him often. In fact, there's a mutual friend who was supposed to be here tonight. He's not here, but he saw Parker, and he said, I'd never met Parker before. He's the loveliest guy. I said, yeah, he's literally like my brother. Parker is 6 years older than I am, and when I was 18 and he was 25, or maybe 7 years older, he just graduated from Princeton. He had an architecture degree. I was like, what are you doing being an actor? But he was really brotherly with me and helped me navigate, because even though I'd grown up around show business, I'm here starring on a TV show, and he'd done movies, and he had experience, and he was very protective of me, and man, he was gracious with me too, because as my star blew up, you know, a lot of other actors might have had a lot of jealousy and animosity, and he didn't. He was so gracious with me, always, and I love him. So thanks for asking about him.
Yeah, no, that makes me happy to know that. Your last album, your fourth album, was Wasp, and it was produced...
fifth album. Sixth album, I think. Shaun Cassidy, Born Late, Under Reps, Room Service.
Oh, sorry.
Live album, Wasp.
Okay, sorry. Produced by the legendary Todd Rundgren.
Todd Rundgren, yeah.
And it's a new wave album. Like, you're remaking Rebel Rebel.
Sort
you're
of,
remaking a Talking Head song. You grew up in punk bands before you were a teen idol. Do you feel like that album is the truest representation of you musically?
No. Okay. No, I don't. I think it was really fun, and it was wildly experimental, purposefully. Yeah. I mean, Todd did something interesting with me. I'm 21. I've had all this success in pop music. I love Todd as an artist. Something Anything was like a seminal album I played in high school all the time, and he was like 17 when he wrote and produced all those songs. And he'd worked with a lot of eclectic artists. So when I suggested to Warner Brothers, again, can we reach out to Todd Rundgren? And they said, well, why do you think he'd want to produce you? I said, because he produced The Tubes, he produced Hall & Oates, he goes sort of different areas, different ways he might be interested. And I like a lot of the same kind of music he does. So they called me and said, sure. So I met with Todd, and he said, you know, you're an actor, right? I said, yeah, well, sort of. And he said, why don't we do an album where you get to play characters? He said, I don't want to just do another album. Honestly, I think he would have been bored just making another pop record with me. And I said, well, you know, I'm starting to write a lot. Can I write some songs? He said, well, you can, but what if we do like some really cool, unexpected covers, and you just do like different characters, different sounds? I have a very deep voice. I've always had a big voice. In fact, during sound check, my wife said, don't sing so loud. So if I sing too loud, I didn't listen to her, and it's my fault. I grew up like singing with Oklahoma, and Gordon McRae was my godfather. My boy Bill, he will, you know, all that stuff, Broadway stuff, my father too. So singing pop music I could do, but I tended to sing like Jim Morrison or David Bowie because they were lower in register. I could sing Robert Plant if I sang in falsetto. But I'm saying all this to you because when I was making the early records, they often sped my voice up a little bit to make me sound as young as I looked. So when it came time for Todd, it was like my Declaration of Independence. I want to sing down here, and I want to yell, and I want to, try and emulate Levi Stubbs, which was insane, lead singer of the Four Tops. Don't do that. We covered the Talking Heads.
Yeah.
We did write one song together called Cool Fire, which was about television, ironically. And I did the whole album with Utopia. And I lived at Todd's house in Woodstock, New York, which was great. I was there 3 months, 21 years old. I remember Mick Ronson came by and played on it, David Bowie's guitar player. And yes, it was, some of it was certainly, like Once Bitten, Twice Shy was a song I played in my high school band because I loved Ian Hunter and I loved Mott the Hoople. Mm-hmm. And we recorded it, and then a few years later, Great White had a big hit with it. But those were like, I want to try that. And I love Bowie, and we did this freakish Rebel, some of which is good and some of which is horrible. But, A for effort.
Oh, I think you're not being fair, because I was listening to it again today, and it just is, it's fascinating to me. It is like fascinating.
Pretending is a beautiful song. Selfless Love. Todd wrote a couple of songs for it. It sold about 8 copies. And, thank you. Thank you.
There's one right there.
I think the truth is, what I should have done, and I've thought about this, if I wanted to keep making records, and I'm not sure I did, but I should have just, because Room Service didn't sell very well, and it shouldn't have, because I don't like that record, and I don't like it because there's a lot of disco push influence on it, and I was pushing back on that, but disco was literally swallowing everything. You cannot imagine, and I love the Bee Gees, but there were people like going, I'm sick of hearing these Bee Gees, because they were on 24/7.
Yeah.
Saturday Night Fever had opened. Disco had been around since like 73, 74, and I went to boarding school in New York. I remember hearing early dance records, disco records, and thinking they were cool, but then it just became everything. It swallowed everything, and I was getting pressure to make a disco record, which I just thought was so wrong for me. And yet I hear disco in there, and I hear some background vocals that sound kind of Bee Gee-ish, and I was like, ugh, why did you let them do that? So, yeah, anyway.
So
I had a point. I
want to follow up on you saying, why did I let them do that? You brought up, was her name Ruth? The woman who
Ruth Aarons.
So yeah. Ruth Aarons, did you? We hear so many stories about teen artists who there's a Svengali there, or there's someone like a Lou Pearlman, with the Backstreet Boys, and
I could have used a Svengali, I think.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Did you feel like you were in control of your career, or did you have people telling you to do things you didn't want to do, and you had to go along with it?
Yes and yes.
Okay.
I think. Honestly, again, this is all on reflection. I absolutely have the life I always longed for, but I didn't know how to have. And the life I was in, I really do think we get 2 lives if we're lucky. We get the life we're born into and the life we make. And sometimes the life we're born into can swallow you whole if you can't get away from the things that aren't healthy for you. And the life you make, you got to make the right choices. If you make poor choices, you're going to make maybe a worse life than where you came from. But some part of me knew, like, the life that would be best for me. And that was always my focus, more than career moves. It was like, if I do this, will my life be better? As opposed to, if I do this, will I have another #1 record? Wow. And that is the greatest thing 18-year-old me gifted me with. And I don't know how 18-year-old me knew that. I don't think I knew it consciously, but intuitively I knew it. And I think it's because I came from this family in show business where my parents had gotten divorced, or weren't even divorced, but were like divorcing, and I'm 16, 17. My father died when I was shooting the pilot for the Hardy Boys. So I'm like, and then suddenly I'm a big deal and opening the Grammy Awards, and my life is turned upside down, sort of, although I've watched Upside Down with David and my mother and my father in show business terms. But in terms of like what my life was going to be, I didn't want my life to be touring all the time and being famous all the time and being chased by paparazzi into restaurants. It was not for me. I'm an introvert. I just am. I'm a writer, right? I like sitting quietly in my room and drawing a picture or telling a story or writing a song. And I can come out and do this. I'm a very good public impersonator. I've learned to do it over the years, and I really genuinely like and get a lot of satisfaction about being with you, being with an audience. That's why I'm going on the road now, because I've missed this, honestly, because I was 40 years in a room. But it is not, if I'd had to do this my whole life, it would not have been a happy life, and I wouldn't have the life I have. Did I answer your question?
You answered about 4 questions, which is great. I want to,
But no, did I do what people wanted me to do? Yes, I went along a lot. I try to get my stuff in there. Like, the Do Run Run was my idea to record. I heard it on the radio. I love Phil Spector. I knew my audience were young kids. But it was like my way of, like, kind of threading this needle of, okay, I'll do a pop record, but I want to do a cool pop record. Or Eric Carmen, who I loved. Eric Carmen was a really great composer, great singer, power pop, Raspberries. Can we record That's Rock and Roll? I bought this Eric Carmen solo album. I want to do that song. And then Eric called me and said, hey, I've got another one called Hey Dini. You want to do that one? Yeah, I do. So I managed to get a bit of a voice in it.
Yeah.
And I got to write. I started writing fairly early on, and some of the songs I wrote I still like and I still play.
So people will get to hear them when you go on tour. As someone who grew up reading 16 Spec and Fave and Tiger Beat, that's how we learned about you.
Did you read that too? No. I'm guessing not.
Exactly. I'm guessing not. How different do you think it would have been for you if social media were around then?
Horrible. Look, as challenging as it was to be a young public figure when I was going through all that, I know from experience, because I've looked over, I run a lot of television shows with young actors. Lucas Black, for example. Lucas Black was a little boy in Sling Blade who starred in my first series, American Gothic, first series I created. And he was a 10-year-old brilliant actor and a wonderful kid. And the character he played was a character named Caleb. And I loved Lucas Black so much that when our first son was born, not my first son, but my wife Tracy and I first son, I named him Caleb because I loved Lucas Black so much. But I was very protective of him. To answer your question, I know I'm veering, sorry.
No, this is good.
But I've had a lot. Sarah Paulson, first job was on my show, and she was very young then. And Heath Ledger, I gave Heath Ledger his first airplane ticket to America to star in a show for me.
You had Austin Butler.
And Austin Butler, very,
really,
very young before he was like
later,
a big
but it's
thing.
Crazy.
But I spent a lot of time with these young actors, having not only gone through it myself, but also having shepherded a lot of young actors on different television shows of mine, and felt very parental toward them and protective of them, because I've seen so many bad versions of it. And look, as much as David had challenges with it, he at least got through most of it and had great success for a long time. Certainly had challenges with it, though, and I had challenges with it too. But I really pulled back from it. 1980 was my last concert for 40 years. But happily.
Let's talk about that last concert. Right. It was the Houston Astrodome.
Yeah.
So your last concert is 50,000 people,
and then some cattle. There was some
50,000
maybe
people
a few
and
pigs
cows
too,
and cows.
Yeah.
And then you just walk away from it. The music scene is changing.
Yeah.
It's disco's dying, hard rock's coming in, MTV's about to be born, and you just walk away and do theater.
Well, it was a mutual agreement.
So you felt
right. I decided to stop making records, and the audience decided to stop buying them.
So kind of worked
we
out
came to
great
an
that
understanding.
Way.
Yeah, it was. But it was fine. It was fine because I didn't want to keep chasing that, and I needed to go home. Like, again, parents had divorced, father had died. I'm thrown into this thing of recording and concerts and TV. I don't have time to grieve for years, truly. And while I was working on the Hardy Boys, I fell in love with the writer's room. I wouldn't hang out on the set when I wasn't acting. I would go to the writer's room and say, what are you guys doing? What are you reading? Are you optioning anything else? Are you writing anything else? I was just fascinated with the writing process. And I started rewriting a lot of my own dialogue, which tortured the writing staff for a while until they found out I was kind of funny and I could hit a joke. And I also had a structural sense. Maybe it came from music or whatever, but I was drawn to writing. And it saved my life because I found something creative, because I love creativity. I love making stuff. I got to get up in the morning and make something. But it doesn't have to be me on the stage as the thing. I can do it for other people. I can do it by building a house or planting a garden or seeing my children succeed. You know, my son Jake is a fantastic producer. Now, he just did a beautiful campaign that involved the University of Florida and the new quarterback there, and I was so proud to see the work he'd done. My daughter Juliet's an actor who's fantastic, and a writer, and a director, and seeing all of our kids are succeed in different ways, not in show business necessarily, is so gratifying. And I know I'm veering again. Sorry.
No, you can veer all you want. It's fascinating. You spent about 10 years before you started American Gothic, which we're going to talk about American Gothic because you know I'm the American Gothic fangirl of all time, doing theater with your siblings, with, Broadway, West End. What kind of transition was that for you, and what did you get out of that?
Well, my dirty little secret there is I wanted to hang out with the playwrights. So I acting was like my waiter job while I was learning about writing. And honestly, my joke is I stayed home for the 80s, but I kind of did. I'd gotten married crazy young. I was married at 20, 21. I had 3 kids by the time I was 25. And I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do with my life. But I'm reading books. I remember I would spend, like, my rock star money. I'd go to Crown Books or Barnes & Noble and buy $300 worth of books. And I'd bring them home and read them. And thinking all my friends had gone to college were going to come home smarter than me. And, of course, they were at keg parties and football games while I was reading Moby Dick. So it worked out. But the theater was a natural place for me to go, and I could trade on my celebrity. Like, they'd hire me, but they'd hire me in parts that I probably either wasn't right for or never would have gotten, but they wanted to sell tickets, so I was well known. But my trade-off is I got to do a really serious piece of theater, work with an interesting playwright, do a new play, get paid $100 a week, literally, like no money. But it was an education. It was my artistic education, and wildly beneficial. And so I started writing in my late 20s, and I sold my first script when I was 29. And it was a classic tale of killer cats called Strays. That was the #1 movie on the USA Network in 1991. Thank you very much. But that was like a huge breakthrough, this little cat movie. And now I'm like off and running, like, genie out of the bottle. And then David calls. I don't know if I'm segueing for you, but I'm like finally in this writing thing, and I'm about to turn 30, right? And David calls and says, hey, there's a show called Blood Brothers, big hit in England. It's just opened on Broadway with the British cast, but not doing so well. They want to bring in some American names. How about you and me? I said, how about you and find some other guy to do it? Because I've just transitioned over to this writing thing, and I've got a little office at Universal, and I'm on a path now, man. I've been working on this for a while. No, it's going to be great. And David could be very persuasive. And I love David, and I love the idea of working with him. But I didn't want to go to Broadway for a year and a half. It was like going to totally pull me off my game. But I went to Universal, and I said, look, my brother David has asked if I'll do this musical with him. And I did go and see the show, and I was quite moved by it. And also, it was our dad. We were like, that's our dad's place, was Broadway. And to be there with David and share that experience with him and kind of walk in our dad's shoes and feel the connection with David. It was all too much emotional juice for me to turn down. But the studio was very kind. They let me keep my office and an assistant while I was doing the show. But I promised I'd write during the day. So I crafted a lot of American Gothic while I was, singing and dancing at night on the stage. And American Gothic, I don't know if any of you ever saw it. It's about the darkest show in the universe.
Please raise your hand if you saw American Gothic. Oh. Okay. Not as many as need to have seen it. It is on Prime, Amazon Prime?
I don't know where it is now. It was on Peacock because it's a Universal show. And we sold the show to CBS, which was bizarre because CBS, like Big Hit, was touched by an angel, and this was like
this was touched by a devil.
Satan.
Yeah.
Okay. And this was before like The Sopranos or before The Shield or Breaking Bad. And all of the anti-hero shows that became a real thing, It wasn't on CBS. Everybody was right down the middle hero, you know. In fact, I made a joke about Andy of Mayberry in American Gothic, because I've got this sheriff who's a small-town sheriff who's clearly seen Andy of Mayberry, and he's whistling the theme song from Andy of Mayberry as he's tapping a pen on the cell bars to go down to talk a man into stabbing himself to death in the jugular with this pen. It's a happy little scene I crafted while I was doing my Broadway musical.
And the sheriff was played by Gary Cole. It really is I want to talk about that. You've already brought up Lucas Black. You've brought up Sarah Paulson. It was an astonishing cast.
And an amazing cast. It was Sam Raimi was my partner. You guys know Sam? Sam, fantastic director, had done the Evil Dead movies, and then directed the first Spider-Man movie, which was a big, big deal. But Sam knew how to build scares, you know. And the thing about Scary, this wasn't really a horror show, though Sam kept calling it a horror show. I said, no, it's a suspense thriller with emotional, but yeah, it's a horror show. Okay, you're stabbing a man in the neck with a thing. And the hero of the show breaks a little girl's neck in the first, 3 minutes. The hero. You're supposed to root for this guy. And weirdly, most of the audience did, because Gary was so great. Gary Cole, such a good actor. And the guy was charming, as, bad people can be. And he ran his town like Mussolini. He's like, if you take care of him, like the Godfather, you do for me, I do for you. Trains run on time, with a little supernatural edge.
I want to know where that came from within you.
I know exactly where it came from.
Okay.
It's all Shirley Jones' fault.
She seems so nice.
She does, doesn't she? My mother has a dark streak. My mother loves Stephen King. I always loved Stephen King. Loved reading the scary, the murder mysteries and stuff. I do think I can't remember who told me this great little slogan, that no man has a shadow unless he's standing in the light. And there really is truth to that, in that the sort of this darkness and light thing is really about balance. And the healthiest people I know are the ones who keep their dark side in check, but at least acknowledge it's there, as opposed to pretending it's not, because those are the crazy people. I'd seen a front line on a little preschool in South Carolina. This was, you may remember, there was a sort of a preschool panic about child abuse in preschools. McMartin, exactly. That was the number one, but it sort of became a contagion around the country. Suddenly every kid was being abused by some teacher or principal. It was bad. And it was all fear-driven. And I'm sure there were incidents of it, by the way. I'm not denying that. It's horrible. But most of it was media-driven and fear-driven. And this documentary on Frontline was all about how people's lives were ruined by this sort of unnecessary witch hunt. And it took place in South Carolina, where everyone was just so polite as they were stabbing their neighbor in the back. And I loved that. I thought, I can do a show like that. And that's what inspired it. And I have a dark side, too. I'm Irish. I mean, I can't not have a dark side. But I own it, and it's where my humor comes from.
Black humor. So you've spent the last 30 years being an extremely successful show creator, writer, and producer on such shows as Cold Case, Cover Me, The Agency, New Amsterdam, mainly crime and medical procedurals. What do you like about that format?
I don't know that I did. I just landed in them.
But you created some of them.
Well, I didn't create New Amsterdam.
Right.
That was my friend David Schulner, who's a great writer and terrific showrunner. But the shows I created, first of all, I haven't really created a hit. I've gotten a lot of shows on, though, and that is, I guess, success in itself. But my shows tend to be weird and idiosyncratic. And I've worked on more successful shows, like Cold Case was on for a long time. I ran a show called The Agency about the CIA that was interesting because it happened during 9/11. And in fact, crazy thing, we'd done a pilot about a guy. I didn't write the script. They brought me in it was a movie writer to oversee it because he hadn't done television. And the pilot was about this guy I'd never heard of named Osama bin Laden blowing up Harrods department store in London. And the CIA stops it at the very last moment. So we shot this pilot, and we shot at the CIA, which was the first show that had ever shot there. And I got to know the director of the CIA and a lot of the people working there. And then we're set to have our premiere party at the CIA on like September 15th, 2001. So on 9/11, I'm woken. You know how I learned about 9/11? The CIA called me. True story. The PR person and said, hey, you know that red carpet party thing? I don't think we can do that now. I said, no kidding. And don't you have anything else to do but call me right now? So we threw that pilot out, and we did a whole new pilot because they didn't want it talking about bin Laden. It was crazy, and we stopped him. No, guess we did. But it made the show a lot more interesting because suddenly our CIA officers were living in a world where 9/11 had happened, and they felt responsible. A lot of them felt guilty, the characters. So it made the show more nuanced and interesting.
So you totally had given up music. I saw a great comment from you where you said you got to have a normal life. You got to have a normal life.
I'm not sure I know what that is, but I got to have the life I thought might be normal.
Normal. Close, close enough. And then Oprah comes calling in 2011, and it's a pivotal moment.
It's true.
Can you talk about that?
So I think I'm here because of Oprah. Well, I'm here because of my wife, and then Oprah. Some of you may know this story because I've told it before. And again, so much of my life, I don't realize, maybe this is everyone's life. You don't know the big moments until you can look back on them. You don't know really, I changed that day, because you're in the middle of it. You only need the perspective so you can see it. But so I'll set the stage. This is insane in itself. For 4 years, I was in Walt Disney's original office. My office was Walt Disney's old office. Don't ask how that happened. That was crazy. And it was an accident. The office had been closed for many, many years because it was Walt's at Disney. But I have a deal at Disney now, and I'd come from Warner Brothers where I had quite a big office, and I come to Disney, and I get in this tiny little office, which I was fine with, but I couldn't really have meetings in there. I could write in there, but I didn't do much writing in my office. I did it at home. So I said, hey, if a new office comes up where I can meet with someone a little bit bigger, it'd be great. So they put me on some list, and then one day this very lovely lady who I'm certain had played like Snow White at the park. Hello. She was like that. I'm not kidding. A lot of people at Disney are like that. I think we found an office for you. Okay. So she takes me down to the end of the hall where there's this office that had never been open that I'd seen. She walks me in, and it's one office and a kitchen and another office, like a conference room and a kitchen and this office. And I'm like, where did this come from and who was in here? She said, well, when Michael Eisner took over the studio, he was in here, but then he decided he wanted to build a new building for him and for all of the executives. So this just became an office. It was the head of the studio's office. Before Michael Eisner? Yes. This was Mr. Disney's office. She literally said it to me like that. And I'm like, what am I doing in here? She said, we talked, and we thought you should have it. And I was literally, that's how I felt too, but also terrified because the pressure, by the way, I had a terrible 4 years. I couldn't do anything in that office. It was so intimidating. All I did was give tours. People would come. I did. And they had this thing, the archives, and they had all of Walt's stuff that had been in the office when he died. He died, he had terrible emphysema, cancer ultimately. He died right down the street at St. Joseph's Hospital, and they closed up the office. And his son-in-law had been in there for a little bit, and I think his nephew Roy Disney had been in there for a little bit because Roy Disney came in one day when I was in there, and he gave me the dirtiest look. Like, what are you doing in here? It's like, I don't know. But anyway, so I'm in Walt's office. I seem to be doing well in show business. It's our son's birthday, our son Rowan, and Rowan was like turning like 4 or 5. And Tracy had taken him to one of these amusement parks. I remember this day, so if I do write a book, this will be in the book. And you know, well, I'll get to that. But you know those things where you have to get on the roller coaster, get on the Dodgem car, the tennis ball has to hit your head. You need to be tall enough. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. So Rowan was like just under the thing, and Tracy called me from this park on his birthday, and I'm angry already because I'm not at his birthday. I had work to do. I'm in the office. And he said he's sobbing because he can't reach the tennis ball. And on the other line, my assistant says, They're calling from the Oprah Winfrey show. What? And I said to my wife, they're calling from Oprah Winfrey. And my son's crying, and I want to go to the thing. She said, take Oprah's call. All right, so I get on the other thing. They're calling me because it's Oprah's last season. I'd never been on her show before. I don't know if they'd asked me to be on the show, but I had a habit of not doing any of this kind of thing for years. I just wouldn't do it because I always assumed it was going to be memory lane stuff. To tell us what it was like wearing satin pants at Madison Square Garden. Well, it was very cozy, but I didn't want to go and talk about that stuff. I would go talk if I had a new show coming on. I'd go to promote the show. I had a show called Invasion on ABC that was on after Lost, and I did a lot of promotion for that. And then I'll talk about Teen Idol stuff and records, and I'm happy to do that. It wasn't, I just didn't want to do the memory lane interviews because I always felt like I was blowing an interview when I could be talking about something right now, right? But Oprah's called, and she wants me to come on and do the complete memory lane thing. They're doing like everybody's favorite crush or whatever it was, and I wasn't Oprah's. I think that was Jermaine Jackson or Jackie. Thank you, Jackie Jackson.
Somebody knows that.
But I was one of the producers, and most of the producers were women, and one of them liked me, so they wanted me on the show, and I'd never done it. And Tracy said, "That is the Queen calling, man. You are going." And she said, "And I want to meet Oprah." So we went, and I was reluctant. I was like, what am I going to say? I didn't have a show on. I didn't have a book or a record. I had nothing to talk about. And then they called and said, hey, we'd like you to sing. I haven't sung, literally like the Midnight Special might have been the last time I sung on television. And we'll get you a piano. I said, I don't have a band or anything. Oh, it's fine. You can sing to Oprah. I said, oh, no. By the way, it's kind of what I'm doing tonight, so brace yourself. But I got it together, and I worked up a little like the Duron Run, That's Rock and Roll, Hey Deanie Teen Dream soup. But I walk here. This is the point. I'm sorry. So I walk out on the stage. I literally walk out, and I look out, and I do this. You can see it if you watch the show. I pull back behind the curtain because I can't believe my eyes. Because the last time I'd done that, everybody was 12. And I'm not kidding you. I was talking about the light in the eyes was the same, but everybody was now 42, And it was so emotional for me. It really hit me, honestly. And I felt like such an idiot because I'd withdrawn so well for so many years, not realizing that the audience that I'd shared this tremendous experience with had grown up too and had a life and may have gotten married and had kids or gotten a divorce or whatever. They'd lived a life. And yet there was a connection between all of us that was really profound. And it moved me. I got emotional on the show, and I suddenly knew I was there. And sometimes, again, it's one of those things like, oh, duh, this is why I came here. To have this wake-up call that there was this unfinished story I shared with a very large group of people. And I want to continue that relationship now. So that was the spark for me doing this tour now, but I'd done it sporadically, But I was starting oh, that's when the door opened. And thank God. I don't know. Anyway, so. Yeah.
I'm gonna speed ahead because I know we're gonna switch to. We want to give you guys a chance to ask some questions. But so, talk more about that connection because the tour is called The Road to Us.
Yeah.
And why now? And what kind of connection do you feel you want to make with the audience when you start this tour September 13th?
Yeah, at the Grand Ole Opry.
At the Grand Ole Opry with Carrie Underwood. Yeah, she's on that.
Carrie Underwood's on the show that night, too. Yeah. A lot of, the Opry, I'm doing the original, the Opry radio show, so I'm only singing 3 songs, but I'm honored to be there with all these great country people, and this will be the second time I've done it, and I'm not a country artist. I never have been, but they invited me because they said, you're a storyteller, and country music is storytelling, and I was like, oh, right, that's cool. Okay, thanks. The Road to Us is the sort of extension of that Oprah moment. And that was 2011. It still took me like 7 years, 8 years.
Yeah, 9 years. 2020.
Well, in like 2019.
Yeah. 2018.
Here's how it happened. People kept saying, write a book, write a book, write a book. So I'm writing television, literally hundreds and hundreds of scripts, and I have not written a song in 30 years. And I'm starting to write like notes for a memoir and remembering Phil Spector crazy stories and, growing up with my family. And if I ever do write a book, it won't just be about me. It'll be about my family because anyway, well, you did on Oprah. That's why I'm here.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I started this memoir thing, and I thought, I can't write a memoir. I'm writing all day anyway. I'm writing these New Amsterdams, whatever I'm doing. I don't want to be writing again, because now, from that moment on that Oprah thing, I'm realizing I'm missing life. I've had this Rip Van Winkle life of like literally going into a room at 20 and stepping out at 60. And it's weird, but it's fantastic. Thank God I did it, because I would have just died in that room. And don't misunderstand. I've spent a lot of time with my kids and my family, but the greater experience of living in the world, I've avoided, because I didn't like being out in the world when I was being chased by crazy paparazzi people and stuff. But it's not healthy. I mean, this is why Michael Jackson goes Michael Jackson or Elvis goes Elvis. It's just not healthy. But I found something healthy to do while I was hiding in my room, which was write and stay creative and have a family. So I managed to kind of get the best of both worlds. But this unfinished relationship was unfinished. And so I said, I'm not going to write anymore. I'm going to go out and talk to people. I'm a storyteller. That's what I have to offer. And that was the other thing that sort of clicked in my brain, is like, I was always afraid, like, I'm going to go out some nostalgia act, put on satin pants and pretend I'm 20 and look like an idiot. And a lot of people have made a very good living doing that, and I don't judge that, but I was fortunate that I didn't have to do that. So I thought, if I'm going to go out and sing "To Do Run Run" and care about it and make it matter and sing it better than I ever did at 18, because I can, because I didn't sing for 40 years. Remember, most people at my age have lost their voice because they burned it out. I didn't have that problem. I think I sing better than I ever did, but you'll be the judge. I wasn't fishing, but I decided I'm going to go out and talk to people, and I'm going to tell stories and connect with them that way. And I wrote a whole one-man storytelling show, no music. And all my friends said, "No, dude. They're going to throw furniture at you if you go out there and don't sing "To Do Run Run" or whatever." I said, well, how do I sing "To Do Run Run" and weave it into the story without talking about Phil Spector? And I found a way. That was what I did, though. I managed to find stories to support the songs, so the songs could be fresh and original and be presented in a way that was important to me now, but still give everybody the nostalgia that I know they came for, but also give them something new. Come for the "To Do Run Run," leave for the story. And that's what happened, and I did it in little doses, And it kind of took off, and I didn't know if anyone would come on it. So you can't take 40 years off and then, hey, it's just like we left off, riding a bicycle. It's not. And I didn't know how to advertise it. I didn't have a record, But I started small, little play, did a little winery where we live, and sold out 1, 2, 3, 4 shows. People came from all over the world. That's what I said. And then they started booking me. An agent found me and booking me. And I did this show in 2020 in Vegas for 2,500 people. And then pandemic. Literally, I had the worst timing. The pandemic started, and suddenly my and hardly doing shows and doing them sporadically. And meanwhile, this agent is calling, going, just let me book you like a real person. Give me like a year's notice. Because I was doing it little bits and pieces. Do I really want to? I'm doing a TV show. I don't want it to ruin my television career. Still nervous about doing it. Will anyone come? But you came, and I found out I really loved it. I loved it. And I love singing all those pop songs now because I haven't sung them. They're fresh to me, and I have a great band, and I think they sound better than they do on those records. So I'm thrilled, and then I can tell these stories, kind of like what we're saying tonight, and connect. See your eyes. It's also not Madison Square Garden, so it's not just a sea of, like, flash cubes. I
think you...
You know what I'm talking about, don't you?
Yes. You really dated all of us with that.
No, there are people laughing at something else, because I told a story in one of my early shows. After these kids would use these Instamatic cameras with flash cubes, they'd take them off and throw them. And they're glass.
Yeah.
And they hit you and they cut you.
Oh.
So I would end up bleeding a lot. It wasn't, these were love offerings, I'm sure, but I don't like the iPhone much either, but it's safer than the flash cube.
Before we open it up for questions, I want you to talk about, is there going to be a new album? There's new music. Is there going to be a new album? And what was it like to return to seriously writing songs?
Well, I started again because I was doing the show, and because the show is story-driven, and most of the songs I could find stories to support, but in some cases I had stories I wanted to tell that didn't have a song. So I started writing songs to support the story. And I'm going to play you 2 songs tonight that are new songs, one of which I think I played in my last little mini tour, and one of which is brand new. And I'm going to play you a third song, too, because it's meaningful to me, and I think it will be to you. But, I did it for the stories, and then I found out I really liked doing it, and I think I'm better at it than I was. I have something to say. I'm not 17.
Yeah,
so.
You've lived life. We're going to open it up for questions, and then he's going to perform. I don't know who has the mic.
Do we want to turn on the Oprah lighting? There
we're
we go, so we can see everyone.
We're going to raise their hands. Okay. So...
Who wants a car?
Exactly. The first hand I saw go up was the woman with glasses and the black... You, yes.
Hi.
Hi. Well, I am wearing my necklace from 3rd grade.
Oh, my God.
I'm just curious. So through the years, I had the satin jacket.
Me too.
My doll. What was the strangest piece of merchandise?
Oh, that's a funny question. You know what's interesting? I never had any of that stuff in the day. They never gave it to me. I don't think they ever showed it to me, honestly, because I'd seen that doll. That doll was like G.I. Joe with Barbie's head on it. That was me. I never liked that doll. But there was some weird stuff. I mean, there was a Hardy Boys board game. It wasn't so weird, but it was just a terrible game. And I liked board games, but it was lame. They had this dumb thing, too. They had like this amplifier, like with a microphone. I don't know what you do with that. I mean, most kids I knew sang with a comb in front of the mirror. But what's your little necklace? What is that? Okay, well, note to self for the new merch table. I guess we got to come up with some new versions of that.
Okay, right beside you. Yeah.
Hi.
Are you going to call people? Okay.
Oh, no, you call people.
No, you call people.
No, I
Go
can't.
ahead.
I'm bad. You're better at it.
Okay, so the person right beside the person who just asked the question.
Hi, Shaun.
Hi.
Hi. You have such a kind of a distinctive way of telling stories. And have you ever thought about directing? Have you done any directing?
I have done some directing. I actually directed Heath Ledger in a show called Roar of mine, but I would only direct when there was an emergency. Because I'm a showrunner. That's primarily my job. And when you're running a show, you're working on like 6 episodes at the same time. You're developing one. You're probably rewriting a script. You're probably monitoring the one that's shooting. You're in post-production on another one, and then you're dreaming one up. So you're working a lot of different areas. So for the showrunner to devote himself to a week or 10 days of one show on the set is usually at the... It's either there's a problem, the director didn't work out, or it's the final episode of the season where you're not working on any others. And I never got to the point where everything was so running so smoothly that I could just take off the time. But honestly, I don't love being on sets. Again, I like being in my room. I like being at home. And in my job, if I'm on a set, it's usually there's a problem. So, but thank you for, I can tell stories writing them, though. Yeah, yeah. Hi. I'm sorry, I did it again.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yes, go ahead.
He's directing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's like 16-year-old me, I think.
Yeah.
I see.
It's lovely, and my husband wouldn't mind, but I'm just telling you. So 8-year-old me got this for Hanukkah when she was very tiny, and wants to know what you would tell this person.
The one on the cover or the one holding the cover? Oh.
Spicy. Oh, listen.
All right.
These people have been in love with you for a very long time. There's a lot of stuff pinned up, Shaun.
What would you tell this young man? What advice would you give him?
Have more fun. I was a very serious old soul of a kid, and I was worried about everybody else. I should have had more fun. But maybe if I had more fun, I wouldn't be here talking to you, so I don't know.
Yeah. I do want to call on this woman because
All right,
she's just been
well,
holding her hand up the whole time.
Yes, hi.
And then
Shaun, I want to say, when you dance, you have a style all your own.
When I dance? Dude, I am not a good dancer. Ask my wife.
You have it. It shows on the Hardy Boys. You have it when you're like this.
I had something. No, that's very sweet of you to say. I don't even know if you're being serious or not. I remember. No, you will never see me on that show.
oh wow.
I'm very proud that you'll never see me on that show. No. I'm really a terrible dancer. It's you know why? Because like my wife and I were just in Buenos Aires. Our youngest son is going to college at Indiana, but his first semester is in Buenos Aires, which is amazing to me. And we took him down there. Terrible, hard to leave your kid. Oh boy, Toy Story 4. I mean, it's really bad. You walk around the house, there's these little things, and but we took a tango lesson when we were down there. And well, first of all, she wouldn't let me lead, so there was a problem just out the gate. But my problem is I am, again, like sort of architecture brain, logic brain, and I'm counting 1, 2, 3, thing, blah, blah, blah. I could move when I was a kid. I can move a little now. She makes fun of me when I do, but I can do that. I cannot take like a dance step and learn it because my head is just going to be tripping me up left and right. And interestingly, when I was doing the first concerts, I was just doing my stuff. Second concerts, we got to get him a choreographer and teach him moves and Saturday Night Fever, and they start throwing all that stuff at me, and it was lame, bad. But thank you for your kind words.
All right, we've got to move on to your performance. We're going to do this question and one more.
Okay, go ahead. Hi.
You said something tonight that I found really interesting, which was that you were very influenced by punk rock. So
Yeah.
I'm curious who your punk rock influences.
Well, I was a good friend. I knew Iggy, Jim, quite well. I'd seen the New York Dolls at the Roxy about 27 times. Here's the Dickensian part of my life. When I was like 15, my parents, wisely concerned about the influences of Beverly Hills High School, unwisely sent me to a boarding school in Pennsylvania that was far worse than anything I'd seen at Beverly High. And it scared me, and I would get on the train in Trenton, New Jersey, which is where Springsteen lived or near, and hide in the bathroom because I had no money. They didn't, for some reason, go to school with no money. So I hide in the bathroom to go into New York, hoping not to get caught. And I would go to Max's Kansas City, where Debbie Harry was a waitress, and where Andy Warhol would hold court in the back, and where bands like Kiss would come in and play, like the bar band. And guys like Iggy would be around, and there was a band called Television that was coming later. And then this guy, Danny Fields, who had discovered Jim Morrison and the Doors, and had managed Iggy, had found this new group called the Ramones. And Danny would take me to CBGB's to see Ramones when I'm 15, right? So, yes, lucky to be alive, but weirdly not doing anything wildly dangerous except riding the subway at 4 in the morning to try and get back to school for Monday at 15 years old with hardly a T-shirt on in the winter. But I was, I was like, again, I think it's because I was like a writer. I loved observing it, in it, but not of it, again, And punk was dangerous, and it was also theatrical. And what I also realized about me is that I know I need to shut up because I have to sing or something. But
we want to hear you sing.
Here's my final little self-realization. The first 2 albums I ever owned as a little boy that I played relentlessly on my Fisher-Price record player were With the Beatles, which is the second Beatles album, and the soundtrack to The Music Man, which is the movie my mother starred in with Robert Preston. And the crazy thing about these 2 records, very, very different records, is they both have the same song on them. Till There Was You, written by Meredith Willson, sung by Paul McCartney, The Beatles, sung by Shirley Jones, and The Music Man. And I'm listening to these 2 records at this very influential age, and I realized that literally every musical road that I've traveled since comes from those 2 records. Because you've got movie musicals and Broadway theater in my DNA with my family on one side. You've got pop music, the most beautiful melodies in the world from Paul McCartney and John Lennon and company, and Beach Boys later as well, on the other. And then trouble with a capital T, and it rhymes with P, and it stands with, that is rap. It is. Listen to it. Cash for the merchandise, cash for the cotton goods, cash for the butter. So, and classical and jazz and country storytelling all came out of that. And the theater part of it, the theater, like I love David Bowie because he is this hybrid of pop music and theater. And I don't know, it just, it totally makes sense though, where I come from. Both would be important. And punk was that. It was like blowing shit up. It's fun. Let's see what we can do. Make something new. Yeah.
You get to pick the last person, and then you're going to...
Yeah, it's too much pressure. You do it.
Oh, God. Look, now there are exponentially more hands up than there were before.
I don't need to sing, by the way. I'm happy.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Okay, this woman right here.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Hi.
That just
Hi. Yeah. I know you ladies. How are you?
Well, I just wanted to say thank you. And I have a story for you that ties into the road to us.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Felicia and I here, in 1983, we went to high school together. Okay?
Wow.
And she left, and we parted ways for 40 years.
Oh.
So, at your concert on Valentine's Day 2020, that's where we connected.
Wow. And how many of you got COVID? No? Well, good. Well, that's thrilling. Well, that's what it is about. And by the way, I heard variations of that story a lot. Because I wrote a song called Teen Dream when I was 17, right? I'm not sure I knew what I was writing about then, but I know it was about this. It was about this shared experience of going to a show together and buying some poster or buying a record and having a slumber party and talking about it. It's not about the performer. It's about that part of your life that never goes away. And I had an experience too, obviously, but I wasn't at the slumber party, Anyway, thank you for sharing that.
Wow. That's a wonderful note to end on. Yeah. I'm going to get off the stage. I just want to encourage you.
Thank you for doing this.
Oh, thank you.
She's a wonderful writer, by the way, Billboard.
Thank you.
No,
but I just want to encourage you to write the autobiography because there are so many stories that we did not get to. I'm just going to leave y'all with a teaser, Marlon Brando. So I'm just saying you got to write the book.
We dated for a long time. I really can't talk about it, though. It's too personal. Maybe while I'm on the road doing other things besides writing, I'll write the book. I'm moving out of the way because they're moving things. So this is not the show I'm doing on the road. I'm doing a full band power pop show with storytelling, with a lot of storytelling, different than I've done before. A lot of it is focused on you, the audience. A lot of it's focused on my family, stories behind the songs. But the overriding purpose is about feeling like if you're in a position that you can actually get people out of their house, get them off their couch or out from behind their phone to look at each other and share something, I think it's more important now than ever because I feel everybody getting sucked into their homes, you know, and staying there. And it's not about the pandemic. I mean, that didn't help, but it's just about the world we live in. So I don't need this anymore, do I? I can move on to this one.